All right, Joshua chapter 10, let's call this one honor because this is going to seem to really, in a lot of ways, come down to honor in this chapter where Joshua is going to go back to war, this time on behalf of someone who actually should have been his enemy. It's going to be the Gibeonites, the ones who have just deceived him back in chapter 9. They're not going to need his help. Why? Because once the remaining nations, the kings of the Amorites, hear that not only have they destroyed Ai, not only have they destroyed Jericho, but the Gibeonites, who were mighty warriors, or a nation filled with mighty warriors in defense of a mighty city, have struck a deal with Joshua. They're going to get afraid. They're going to band together and they're going to attack Gibeon, not Israel. They're going to attack Gibeon for turning essentially on them and partnering up with Israel. As a result, even though Gibeah is filled with mighty warriors, they are going to turn to Joshua, ask for his help. And Joshua is going to, of course, say, yeah. We talked about it on Sunday in class during the discussion. If I had been in a situation where I made a bad deal with some folks that I was actually supposed to get rid of, I would have probably let nature take its course. But the reason why honor seemed to be the theme that summed up this chapter is because Joshua seemed to be a man of great honor, and he honored his word to the Gibeonites, even though he never should have given it in the first place. And as a result, for showing that kind of honor to the Gibeonites, God is going to step in as Joshua takes a step toward the Gibeonites to help them out in their time of trouble. And he's going to say, don't fear, because he's going to give these 5 kings who have assembled themselves against Gibeah and essentially against Israel into Joshua's hand. And he's going to do that in a mighty way because he is going to honor Joshua by basically killing more of his adversaries with the elements, great hailstones, than they're actually going to have to kill on their own by the sword. And in addition to that, when it's clear that the battle is going in their favor and all they have to do is basically continue on course and finish off their enemies, God is going to honor Joshua's word in another way by allowing the sun to stand still for about a whole day while Israel completes its victory. And so as God permits them the victory, they are distracted in a certain sense by the fact that they catch the 5 kings huddled together in a cave, hiding from the consequences that are to come. Joshua says, don't be distracted. Continue on in your victory. Subdue your enemies, but shut up those kings in the cave. And as they do exactly as Joshua said, they continue on and they do the best they can in battle. They subdue their enemies, go back to the kings, at which point Joshua is going to deal with those kings by executing judgment on them. And the nation is going to progressively take their territory throughout the end of this chapter. And the final thing that seemed to sum up this theme of honor for me was the way in which it describes, once again, Joshua honoring God by doing all that God had asked. And it's going to be this consistent theme between Moses and Joshua, because most of the words and the commands were actually given to Moses. And so if Joshua wanted an out, he could possibly claim that he was confused about what he was supposed to do, but he was diligent in returning God's kindness to him, not simply saying thanks with lip service, but thanking God in the way he honored him by fulfilling all of the things that he had asked Joshua to do. And the lesson for us may be simple. There are times when we're in a tight situation and we're going to ask God to help us out, much like Joshua needed the nation to recover from the defeat at Ai. It's easy to call on God in those times of peril, but sometimes when we see the difficulty of the task ahead of us, it can be easy to make compromises on our end of the deal, for lack of a better term, asking God to fully come to our aid while we only partially commit to doing the things he's asked us to do. So in understanding the way in which God honored the word of a man like Joshua, it's probably important to pay careful attention to the way in which Joshua honored his word to God, going beyond mere lip service and giving thanks. So likewise, even though we might not be asking God to make the sun stand still for us, and in those times where we are asking God for things and we are not seeing him move on our behalf, it's only fair for us to ask, how much have we genuinely honored him? Because the deficit between what we are asking God to do in our lives right now and the things that he's willing to do may often have to do with ways in which we've asked him to honor our requests in the past, but we've repaid him by refusing to honor the things that he's asked us to do. Which is why we say his best to you as you go forward in him. God willing, honoring your commitment to God in the way you want him to honor your prayers.